Do you struggle on the tennis court when you don't have your A game and you tend to fold, maybe give up a little bit, and you don't know how to play and grind it out with your B game? Hi, I'm Dr. Patrick Cohn with Jaclyn Ellis of Peak Performance Sports. Today, on this episode, we're going to talk about how to play a match when you're struggling a little bit and you don't have your A game. This is the Tennis Psychology Podcast. Jaclyn, a very specific challenge for tennis players is when they go out and they don't have their A game. And both you and I encourage tennis players that you're not going to be in the zone all the time, right? Ken Ravizza would say the zone is overrated, that most of the time you're scrapping and struggling and grinding it out, 75 to 80% of the time. So how do we help those athletes that just throw up their arms and don't know what to do when they're not in the zone and they're not hitting the ball as cleanly as they like?
Yes, many times I like to encourage the athlete to manage their expectations right from the start. I try to explain to them that, if we were to take your last 10 matches, any 10 matches, most of those matches are not going to be your A game. They're going to be somewhere in the middle, an average or an above average match performance. So we want to really think about that. If you're not taking your A game to every single match, we want to be prepared to play with that B game, or even that, I call it your struggle C game day, where you might really be struggling and grinding it out that day, but you can still win ugly, you can still get the job done, even if it might not be your best day or you don't have your best skills that day. So most of your performances are going to be somewhere in that B plus range anyway. Let's accept that right from the start.
Yeah, I think we're dealing with a perfectionist in this case, the perfectionist that wants every ball to feel clean and solid and be deep and go to the target, every serve to be in the court, all the trajectory to be proper. And when one of those things is askew, they think that they're not playing up to their potential. They're not playing to their best. And that's when the perfectionist can get really frustrated. Maybe it could potentially lead to a tank, but it's definitely leads them back into what we call a training mindset, I think, where they start to work on stroke instead of constructing points. They're focusing more on how do I fix my stroke because it doesn't feel clean right now, which is not the best attitude in the middle of a match.
Right. We don't want to be fixing anything in the middle of the match or be in that practice mindset. We want to prepare the athlete to accept the game that they have that day, whether that is the A game, the B game, or maybe it's a struggle C game day. But accept it nonetheless. Do what you can to grind out each point and stick with the game plan. That's very important.
Yeah, and we also like to tell tennis players before you go out there, have some different plans, right? Have a plan A, have a plan B, have a plan C for yourself. So if it's not going well, be prepared to grind it out. Be prepared to go and serve and volley, right? Be prepared to be a backboard and a semi push it back and get every ball in. Be prepared to change up things like I'm going to run around my backhand because my backhand's not that great. Now, a coach would never tell you that. Coach would never say that. But for us, winning ugly means use what's working out there.
Right. One good tip that I encourage athletes as well is a lot of times you're going to have to consider what the opponent doesn't like, what makes them uncomfortable or what makes it difficult for them to play their game. And if that means that you have to do something that you don't like, let's say you don't really come to the net, that's not your best game, but the opponent doesn't like it when you're at the net, I say let's go for it anyway. And that's okay if you're not as comfortable with it, because you know what? Your opponent doesn't like it. And that's what we're trying to attack.
Yeah. So keep in mind, you're not going to have your A game every single match. Most of the time, athletes are at 70 or 80% of their potential when they go out and play. And that's the mindset that we want you to have, that I'm not going to be at 100%. I'm not going to have my A game every single match, and you want to prepare mentally for that. Thanks to Jaclyn Ellis for joining us on the Tennis Psychology Podcast. If you want more information about mental performance coaching with Jaclyn or myself, jump over to peaksports.com and contact us, or you could submit a question for us to answer in the Tennis Psychology Podcast. Thanks for joining us.